What's going on, guys? It's your boy JFT coming at you with another career retrospective. Well, there's a guy that had a recent spike with the fans, just realizing how legit and good this dude is. We will further your respect for the one that started from the actual streets in this episode with his most recent brutal KO of Darren Till. We're talking Jorge Masvidal, who will now look to use the momentum he just got for a run at the title. But this series isn't a look ahead, it's a look back. So let's get straight in to this career retrospective on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. We start this career not with a promotion, not with a championship like the UFC, not with Bellator. We start in the backyard. It's assumed that Jorge had a ton of these fights, but in the backyard. But we have this one on video, and for our purpose, we'll just look at the footage here. With Kimbo fucking Slice as the moderator, Masvidal goes to absolute war with a much heavier and appears to be much bigger Ray, and Masvidal finishes the damn fight in the backyard with a win and the respect of everyone around. That moves us. Probably had a ton more of those in the backyards in his career, but let's get straight into the pro fights that Masvidal had, and it's a really long career we're going to look at today. It's starting with fights in 2003, and he's a consistent fighter. He fights three to four times every year, maybe 2 times on a down year when he gets hurt or something like that, but he fights a lot. So I apologize if I miss out on anything. I don't want to make these series too long for you guys, but we'll be going organization by organization in this look at Jorge Masvidal's career. And we're going to start where Jorge Masvidal found some consistency in his second fight. He debuted for the Absolute Fighting Championship, and he debuted in the organization at 1-0. So from 2003 to 2006, Jorge would have 8 more fights. In the 8, Masvidal would win 7, losing via submission in the AFC. However, in this run of 8 fights, he also had one more fight, which would make it 9, and it was at Full Throttle against Rafael Assunção, who you may know as competing in that TJ Dillashaw in the bantamweight division for the UFC. Jorge came out on the losing end in a unanimous decision, but during the time, Jorge also took the 0 from Joe Lauzon with a TKO finish. So now we move on. Masvidal is now 9-2. So in his next 9 fights, Masvidal would go 8-1. These fights took place all over, and Bodog Fighting Championship which was a small promotion that ran for a very small period of time. He fought for Strikeforce in one fight. He'd go back to Strikeforce, but we'll get to that later. He fought in Crazy Horse Fights and Sinagoku. On April 3rd, 2009, Jorge made his debut in a pretty well-known organization now. He made his debut in Bellator on Bellator's first ever card in a lightweight tournament. And in the main event of Bellator 1 against 21-5 Nick Aguilar, Masvidal TKO'd Nick in the first round to move on in the tournament and etch himself in Bellator history as the first main event and the first main event winner. In the second round of the tournament, however, he was defeated in the semifinals to Toby Amada at Bellator 5 in the main event by an inverted triangle choke submission in the third round, but it took a submission of the year effort for the underdog Amada to submit Gamebred. Masvidal would fight and win once more in Bellator, and then would move around once again in a bunch of indie promotions and a bunch of big promotions. And in his next 3 fights, he would go 2-1, and then he would find Strikeforce again. And in his first fight back in Strikeforce, he'd move up to welterweight to fight Paul Daly, but would come out on the losing end of a unanimous decision. But the fight wasn't a loss entirely, because it was a testament to just what Masvidal would do with his willingness to go anywhere, any weight class to fight anyone. And Paul Daly at the time was a top guy in Strikeforce. He would then go back down to lightweight, where he'd win 2 fights in a row. One against former Elite XC lightweight champion KJ Nunes. Masvidal won this and the previous fight by unanimous decision and put himself in line to fight Gilbert Melendez for the Strikeforce lightweight championship. In the main event of the December Strikeforce card, Melendez won a unanimous decision and captured his 3rd title defense, and Masvidal found himself moving down the card and was going to fight some up-and-comers. Jorge would get one more win in Strikeforce against Justin Wilcox, and this would be his last fight outside of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Strikeforce fell through in 2013, and the stars of the promotion were quickly grabbed by the UFC. Gilbert Melendez, Jorge Masvidal, Eddie Alvarez, Benson Henderson, they were all signed to the UFC roster. In Masvidal's debut, he was successful in a fight against Tim Means, winning by unanimous decision. And to finish 2013, Masvidal went on to defeat Michael Chiesa via submission, but lost in his return with 2 wins in the UFC. He lost to Rustam Khabilov in a via unanimous decision, and this decision was much because Rustam was a better wrestler. In 2014, Jorge Masvidal would have an undefeated year, winning 3 straight fights. First on UFC Fox 11, and then on Fox 12. Masvidal got 2 unanimous decisions against Pat Healy and Damon Cruikshank, and then on his first pay-per-view, to end off his 2014 undefeated campaign, he would defeat James Krause. To open 2015, Masvidal would have opponents lined up, to which all fell through. First, he was signed up to fight Bobby Green, but he had to pull out, and then Benson Henderson, and he had to pull out. Masvidal would finally find his opponent, who you may know in the lightweight division as Raging Al Iaquinta, but would lose. Masvidal would come out on the losing end of a controversial and close contested split decision. Masvidal would put the rage from this result into his next fight with Cesar Ferreira. With the first round finish, Masvidal would fight former champion Benson Henderson in his next fight. Benson Henderson actually got away with a win here. The fight was back and forth and a great fight, but one that would move Masvidal back and would probably be one Masvidal would want to have back. And in the back-to-back outing entering 2016, Masvidal lost to Lorenz Larkin, again in a back-and-forth decision, but this time, instead of unanimous, it was split between the judges. To get back on the winning page, in 2016, Jorge won his next 2 fights, with the first win coming by a mainly striking decision against Ross Pearson, and then Masvidal would make a huge impact with his TKO victory of Jake Ellenberger.
What happened is what happened. Let's do this again. I know Masvidal, he's already looking past Jake Ellenberger. He's got a TKO victory. He's now got Donald Cerrone.
Performances against a skilled striker in Donald Cowboy Cerrone. This would be one of Masvidal's better performances. Masvidal finished off Cowboy in the second round, reminding Cowboy what the welterweight division was all about. And this odd statement coming from an early career lightweight. Masvidal started his career at lightweight, and for most of the time was fighting at lightweight, but made the move to welterweight in his UFC career, and obviously that one time he fought Paul Daly. The tough part about his next 2 fights in 2017 is what made this guy fall off the map for a lot of UFC fans. He lost the first of 2 decisions to Damian Maia. Jorge Masvidal would lose to Damian Maia via a decision, which was kind of a boring fight, which would kind of take him off the map to UFC fans. And we're going to get to that point to where in the Darren Till fight, he was looked at as a major underdog. For UFC 217, Jorge Masvidal was matched up against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Ahead of this contest, I think I'd like to mention, because this is a rivalry right now, he also had a run-in with Michael Bisping. Masvidal cites the continued beef to be a cause of Bisping's disrespect against him in front of his family at UFC 217 in the fighter hotels. Now, this rivalry is actually going on, and it's one of the more heated ones in MMA right now. Michael Bisping came out and said he wanted to squash the beef with Jorge. Jorge said, I don't want to see this guy anymore, so it's clear that this beef has not been squashed. But nonetheless, in a striking contest where neither fighter really engaged between Jorge Masvidal and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Thompson got away with the decision, and this just put Masvidal in that sleeper category of MMA fighters. It's a guy with so much background in martial arts and fighting and stuff like that. This guy would fall from one of the top guys in the welterweight division after beating Cowboy to a guy that was like a 260 underdog against Darren Till. Now, Jorge Masvidal in the Darren Till fight was a huge underdog. He came into that fight, even I was doubting Jorge Masvidal, and I didn't realize, I forget these things sometimes when I'm making my picks. Masvidal rarely, if ever, gets finished. Like, he's been dropped before he was dropped in the Darren Till fight, but he never goes out. And we saw with the Tyron Woodley fight that Darren Till was rocked. So with a magnificent left hand that caught a southpaw in that southpaw stance, put Darren Till to sleep in a brutal fashion. And now we're going to get to see if Jorge Masvidal can get a shot at that UFC title, if he can bring home gold. I think it's going to be for the first time in his career. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really wanted to do this series because this episode on Jorge, because of all the hype he's been getting, I want to make sure you guys know exactly who this guy is, because he's been a fucking legend of the sport. And he's a legend of the sport even if he were to retire tomorrow, because he's done so goddamn much. He's seriously game bred, and you see his backyard days where he doesn't give a fuck about anybody when he punched Leon Edwards in the face. So seriously, guys, make sure you look back at this guy's career, watch this video, figure out some of the fights. I'd urge you to go back and watch the Cowboy Cerrone finish. Another good fight was the Jake Ellenberger fight. And some of his Strikeforce fights, even the decisions, were really, really good fights. But this video's gone on long enough for a career retrospective. We gone 10 minutes in on Jorge Masvidal, but when you have 40-plus fights, you got to do this for a guy like him. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, it means the world to me if you guys would hit that like button, and if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. You don't have to hit the subscribe button if you don't enjoy the content, obviously. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. But that'll do it for your boy. Peace out. We'll see you in the next one.